The bridge of the Dominion Corvus is silent, docked with the colossal fortress, the iron Asteria. Suddenly, alarms blare. The sensor officer's eyes widen in shock. Incoming object, velocity. Impossible. It's exceeding safe FTL entry speeds within the system. Signature is biological. It's a player on the main view screen. A glowing streak of light solidifies into the form of Fengju. He's encased in a shimmering sheath of warp space, a human meteor falling with terrifying intent. He's not aiming for a hangar bay. He's aimed directly at the fortress's outer defense grid. The automated defenses roar to life. Plasma beam turrets swivel and unleash a lattice of superheated death. Fengju doesn't even try to dodge. He simply raises a hand. His gravity synchronicity flares, and he seizes the mass of the energy beams themselves. He bends their paths, twisting them into a swirling vortex of deflected plasma that crashes back into the turrets, melting them into slag. Next, the point defense kinetic cannons open up. Firing a storm of tungsten slugs, Fengju creates a microgravity well in front of him. The sudden, intense pull fractures the stream of projectiles, sending harmless fragments scattering into the void. He ignores the designated entry points and picks the most heavily armored section of the outer hull, the main reactor shielding. As he screams towards it, he finally unleashes his devour ability. Not on a living thing, but on the very concept of structural integrity. A 10-meter circle of layered adamantine alloy doesn't break or shatter. It simply dissolves into a grey mist, consumed into nothingness. Fengju passes through the perfectly smooth hole, landing in a crouch within a brightly lit maintenance corridor, deep inside the fortress. Alarms. Shriek. Unauthorized breach. Sector 01. He stands. The light from the hole behind him casting a long, monstrous shadow down the hole. A squad of 6 Dominion Heaven Realm guards, clad in crimson armor, rounds the corner. They are professionals. No taunts, no bravado. They form a phalanx, shields interlocking, energy pipes crackling. Intruder, stand down. You are surrounded by the full might of the Dominion. Fengju just starts walking towards them. The squad leader signals, and they fire a coordinated volley of chi lances, powerful enough to shred a small starship. Fengju doesn't stop. He extends his right hand. The incoming lances hit an invisible event horizon. His personal gravity well and are compressed, stretched, and spaghettified into harmless energy filaments that wrap around his arm before being devoured. He just ate pure destruction. The guard's iron discipline finally wavers. Fengju reaches them. He touches the lead guard's legendary grade energy shield with his entropic touch. The shield crumbles to dust in a second. He places his palm on the man's chest plate and activates Devour. Just a taste. The guard screams as years of cultivated energy are violently ripped from his Danshan. His level plummets from late heaven to early heaven. He collapses, not dead, but spiritually crippled. Fengju looks at the 5 remaining guards, now frozen in terror. You have 2 choices, he says, his voice unnervingly calm. Be depleted, or be deleted. Spread the word. He walks past them as they break and scramble away in a panic. The lesson is complete. Fengju is no longer weak. He is the calamity. Following the fortress map from Su Ling's data chit, he moves with cold purpose towards the central detention block. In the fortress command center, Vexa watches the carnage on dozens of screens. Her cool demeanor finally cracks. He's not fighting. He's harvesting. Activate protocol. Soul Cage. Send the Legion. Bulkhead slams shut, trying to funnel Fengju. But now, it's not squads, but platoons of soldiers that pour from the side corridors. These are the rank and file, armed with chi disruption grenades and soulbind nets. Their strategy is simple: overwhelm and capture. They are expendable. Fengju is swarmed. A net of energy threading alloy wraps around him. Dozens of grenades erupt at his feet in fields of buzzing. golden light designed to paralyze his cultivation. For a moment, he is buried under a mountain of men and suppression tech. Then, from the center of the pile, a pulse of absolute blackness expands in silence. The gravity well reaches its peak. When it collapses, every guard within 20 meters is fused into the floor, walls, and ceiling by a force that briefly multiplied their weight 1,000-fold. Feng Zhu stands in a clearing of horrifying, compressed art. The hallway now a sculpture of suffering. He breathes heavily, efficient, but costly. They are wasting his time, and his energy. Just when Feng Zhu thought he had a clear path, a new figure blocked his way. Lieutenant Dagon, Vexa's second in command. This wasn't some brute in heavy armor. He was sleek, wearing a suit lined with pulsing purple runes. A peak heaven realm expert specializing in one thing: spatial anchoring. Floating around him, whoa, 6 pylons, emitting a visible, shimmering honeycomb grid of energy. Your spatial tricks end here, devourer, Dagon sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. This grid locks down all translocation within 100 meters. You will fight on our terms. Dagon didn't waste time. He attacked. But not with a physical blow. He used something called spatial shearing, invisible blades that cut through dimensions themselves. Feng Zhu felt them slice through reality, aiming to sever his limbs not from his body, but from existence. With his teleportation blocked, Feng Zhu was forced to dodge physically, a frantic dance against an unseen enemy. He tried to use Devour on one of the shearing blades as it flew past. It worked. But it was like trying to swallow a falling knife, dangerous, inefficient. And it barely slowed Dagon down. The lieutenant pressed his advantage, his confidence growing with every desperate dodge Feng Zhu made. What's wrong? Dagon mocked. Lost your cheat. Feng Zhu stopped retreating. He stopped looking at Dagon entirely. His gaze shifted upwards, to the fortress itself. He saw the ceiling, the gravity regulators, the complex network of machinery holding this section of the station together. A cold, chilling smile spread across his face. You locked down space, Feng Zhu said, his voice eerily calm. You forgot about gravity. He raised both hands, not at Dagon, but towards the honeycomb grid above. Then he unleashed the full, terrifying might of his gravitational control, but he inverted it. Instead of pulling down, he pushed up. The effect was catastrophic. The spatial lock grid, which was calibrated for normal physics, was violently torn from its mountings. The pylons shrieked as they were slammed into the ceiling with impossible force. Conduits ruptured, spraying supercooled coolant and a shower of sparks everywhere. The entire structure groaned under the strain. Then, just as suddenly, Feng Zhu reversed the polarity. Crushing downward gravity, multiplied by 50. The entire section of ceiling, now overloaded with tons of broken machinery and the shattered pylons, gave way. It collapsed. Lieutenant Dagon had just a split second to widen his eyes in disbelief, before he was buried under a waterfall of twisted metal and pulverized rock. Feng Zhu stepped over the smoking rubble, the path ahead now clear. Before him stood the massive, room-carved door to the detention block. It was forged from void steel, a legendary material designed to absorb any and all energy attacks. Beside it, a keypad and biometric scanner glowed uselessly. He didn't try to break it. He simply placed his hand on the cold, dark surface of the door. He activated 2 of his abilities at once. Entropic Touch, to accelerate the decay of the atomic bonds holding the door together, and a focused gravity well, compressed down to the subatomic level, to crush the material in on itself. The void steel door groaned, a deep, painful sound as its very structure was unmade. Then, it dissolved into a fine, black sand that poured silently to the floor. Feng Zhu walked right through the lingering cloud of dust, into the heart of the prison, inside. The detention block was a silent, blue-lit hall filled with rows of energy cages. And there, in the center cell, suspended in a stasis field, was Su Ling. Her avatar was frozen mid-motion, her face a mask of defiance. Her equipment was gone. A complex data tap was attached to her temple, a parasitic device slowly siphoning her memories. Her experiences, everything she was, for the first time since this assault began. Feng Jiu's void-like calm cracked. A spike of pure, unadulterated rage flashed through him. Hot and sharp, but before he could take a single step towards her, the air in the detention block shimmered. Vexa teleported in, and she wasn't alone. She was flanked by two hulking nullifier mechs, automatons whose sole purpose was to emit overlapping fields of chi nullification and spatial anchoring. Instantly, the air became thick, heavy, dead. Feng Jiu felt his connection to the energies of the universe, even the void itself, become muffled and distant. Vexa stood calmly between him and Su Ling's cell, a triumphant look on her face. "Impressive," she said, her voice clipped and professional. "You passed the test. Lord Tyrannus will be pleased. The data from your assault has been invaluable. Your unique energy signature, your gravitational manipulations. We've been adapting our suppression arrays in real time as you fought your way here. You're not getting out of this room." With a flick of a control on her wrist, the trap was sprung. Runes carved into the floor, walls, and ceiling blazed to life with a blinding white light. This was no ordinary suppression array. This was a reality anchor pylon network, a terrifying prototype designed to enforce normal physics with extreme prejudice. Within the field, gravity was locked at a mundane one. Spatial manipulation became utterly impossible, and all exotic energy types, including Feng Jiu's precious void energy, were heavily dampened, almost smothered. Feng Jiu's senses dulled. His connection to his void core, the very source of his power, became strained. Like a distant echo, the two nullifier mechs clanked forward, their fields amplifying the suffocating effect. Their every step a thunderous pronouncement of his doom. For the first time since his ascension to a higher realm, Feng Jiu felt weak. Contained not mortal. Vexa drew a slender, needle-like sword that hummed with a high-frequency vibration, a weapon designed not to cut flesh, but to disrupt neural connections. "The art of the void devour," she said, her voice cold as the vacuum of space. "We'll take it from you now." A flicker of desperation. Feng Jiu tried to summon a gravity well. It sputtered into existence, a tiny, localized distortion that failed almost instantly. He tried to devour the energy of the nearest glowing rune on the floor. The process was agonizingly slow, like trying to drink tar through a straw. The lead nullifier mech reached him. A massive fist, clad in crackling suppression fields, swung for his head. He raised an arm to block. The impact was brutal, sending him skidding back across the floor. His avatar, once a being of pure energy, felt jarringly corporeal, vulnerable, and a sharp pain shot through his arm. Vex's lips curled into a smug smile. "See," she said, "everyone has a price. Even a monster." Trapped and surrounded, Feng Jiu was running out of options. The suppression field was taking its toll. Every punch, every kick, felt like he was moving through thick mud. The cost of his void energy mounting with each desperate strike. He was reduced to basic martial arts, a brutal, degrading brawl against machines. Vexa, the assassin, was a blur at the edge of his vision. Her needle sword a constant threat, each graze leaving a line of dead, numb feeling on his avatar. He had to end this. Focusing on one of the hulking nullifier mechs, he found a weak point, a joint in its armor. With a massive strain, he channeled what little power he could muster into a single, focused entropic touch. The metal groaned and gave way. The mech spasmed and collapsed. But the victory was a hollow one. The effort had nearly drained him completely. Cornered, with his back literally against Su Ling's stasis cell. He felt the familiar whispers of the void return. But this time, they weren't seductive or maddening. They were analytical. A cold, clear voice echoed in his mind. "The field enforces normality," it said. "But your core is a singularity. A point where normality ends. Do not fight the field. Be the exception to its rule." It wasn't madness. It was a tactical insight, a strategy born from the very corruption he fought to control. A new path opened up. Don't push back, pull in. He stopped trying to project his power. He did the opposite. He stopped resisting the suppression field and instead drew everything inward. He compressed his void core, his command over gravity, his very essence, into an infinitesimal point within his dantian. In that moment, he became a black hole in the shape of a man. The reality anchor field, designed to suppress active energy, had no answer for a passive point of infinite density. It strained, it buckled. The glowing runes on the walls flickered and cracked. The remaining nullifier mechs stuttered, their own fields flickering as reality itself began to warp around Fengju. In that split second of instability, he moved. Not a teleport, but raw speed, a violent release of all that compressed energy in a single direction. He blurred past Vexa, ignoring her completely. He slapped his hands onto the two remaining nullifier mechs. But he didn't devour their energy. He used his purify ability in reverse. He force-fed the concentrated, chaotic potential of his suppressed void energy directly into their systems. The mechs were built to nullify clean, stable energy. They had no defense against this pure, weaponized data corruption. They short-circuited violently, exploding in showers of sparks and oily black smoke. The suppression field died with them. Silence descended on the wrecked detention block. Smoke filled the air. Vexa was on one knee, coughing. Her usual cold composure shattered. Fengju stood before Su Ling's cell. A single, focused thought was all it took. The stasis field unraveled, the data tap severed. Su Ling slumped forward, and he caught her. Her eyes fluttered open, filled with disorientation. Then relief. "Fengju, you shouldn't have," she whispered. "I know," he said softly. His gaze lifted, looking past her, down the long, grand corridor leading from the detention block to the heart of the fortress. At the far end, a massive bulkhead was already opening. No more guards. No more lieutenants. Just an open path. And then, a presence washed over them. Calm, vast, and utterly dominating. It was the same aura that had erased hell from existence. But now it was focused, curious. Lord Tyrannus stood in the doorway of his throne room. He wasn't in armor, just simple robes, holding no weapon. He surveyed the ruin, his fallen lieutenant, and Fengju holding Su Ling with an expression of mild academic interest. "Fengju," Tyrannus's voice filled the space without effort. "You have passed through the antechambers. You have broken my toys. You have proven your uniqueness." He gestured behind him into the splendor of his throne room. "The girl may go. Her usefulness as leverage is over. You and I have matters to discuss. The nature of power, the future of this cosmos." He then turned and walked back into his chamber, leaving the way open. An invitation that was also an ultimatum. Fengju looked at Su Ling, her eyes wide with fear. Then at the open door. The allied army was behind him. The sovereign of this sector was ahead. He helped Su Ling to her feet. "Get to the hangar. Find a ship, get out." "And you?" she asked, her voice trembling. He said, gently releasing her and turning towards the throne room. "Have a meeting with the man who thinks he owns the universe." He walked forward, leaving her in the wreckage, crossing the threshold into the dazzling light of Tyrannus's domain. With a final, resonant boom. The massive doors began to close behind him, sealing him inside. The battle was over. But the true war, the duel for the fate of the cosmos, was just about to begin. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for the next chapter.